watching Money Talks, and I'm your host, Ed Marshall. Well, if you commute to the West Bank to Algiers via the Crescent City Connection bridges, the first thing you'll see high in the sky will be a new name on an old water tower that you probably will be like, that's different. We'll tell you more about that when we come back. So stay with us. Welcome back. It's official. This is LSU Health Science Center's first expansion into the New Orleans neighborhood on the West Bank. There was a big grand opening there. The LSU Health Fitness and Wellness Center is open, and that was made possible through work with Senator Troy Carter, as well as Mr. Larry Oye, who is the chancellor of the LSU Science Center, and the chairman of the foundation for the LSU Science Center, Ms. Carol Suggs. All these people were in attendance for this ribbon cutting, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful expansion to the West Bank. And the water tower that we talked about earlier, residents always see when they come by the naval base. It will soon say LSU as well. Governor John Bel Edwards, of course, was on hand to help cut that ribbon, and he is just doing a remarkable job in terms of what being here in the New Orleans area. And that particular facility will encompass some 40,000 square feet. That was originally built as the Navy Fitness Center. The $6.7 million project was funded by the state and the Algiers Development District. And there's also some information that you need to know, and Governor John Bel Edwards was involved in that too. And that, of course, was the recent roast at Delgado for Delgado Community College. He was down visiting the Crescent City that same night, and that same night he was roasted at a fundraiser sponsored each year by Delgado Foundation Board. The board is made up of business leaders in the community who assist in the college raising money for student scholarships. So I'm glad to be a part of that board. The former Governor Edward Edwards was on hand as one of the roasters for the event, so it was quite an event to be at. The event was held at Harrah's Casino at the foot of Canal Street. And most Americans dream of owning their own homes, and the Neighborhood Development Foundation has been helping renters move to homeowners in the metro area for some 32 years. And there was a cake to celebrate that. The CEO, of course, is Mr. Fred Johnson, who has been working with that organization since its inception. And he gave out some letters that night to a number of residents who have gone through the course, and they're out now looking for homes, and they're equipped with what they need to try to find a new home for their families. We'll be back with more Money Talks when we come back, so stay right here. Well, welcome back to Money Talks. You know, every division and every company seems to have a human resources department, it's called, the place where employees and you find out about compensation and all those kind of things, and getting your money every month. Well, there are a number of companies that are outsourcing those kinds of things, and we wanted to talk to one of the leading ones that we know about, and also a gentleman named Eric Wagenspat. Eric, good to see you.
Good to see you, Ed. Thanks for having me this
Eric,
morning.
you've been in this business a while, and you are an associate district manager for ADP, which is Auto Data Processing. Tell our audience, for those who don't know, how your kind of companies work.
Absolutely. So the real reason we exist is the smaller businesses that we come into contact with, that I work with most, can't afford to have a full HR department, as you mentioned. But it's still very necessary if you have as little as 3 to 5 employees, because the risk you're opening yourself up to otherwise is too large. And for a small business, they can't afford to pay out if there's any risk or violations. So we're coming in providing these services that normally you couldn't have unless you're a Fortune 500 company, but we're giving them to these businesses at a small business price and helping them have better relationship with their employees, find and hire better employees in the war on talent we're having right now, and keeping those top talents by offering them the best possible benefits. A lot of people don't realize how they're able to afford retirement plans that they could offer their employees, when in fact they're actually very affordable and end up being cost-free because you're saving so much and putting away for your retirement, which is so important and is an important factor in retaining employees, as well as your health benefits plans. And again, our goal is to make it affordable for those small businesses.
Right. And when you say small business, you're talking like numbers from people who have from like 3 employees to up to 100 or?
For us, it's up to 50.
Okay.
Yes, that's where we really consider small businesses. Once we get past that, there are some laws that start to take effect, such as the ACA. There, it's really important to start giving those businesses even more attention. But absolutely, we work with businesses of all sizes. Really, anyone outside of the Fortune 500 could potentially be a perfect client for us. You know, that's someone who needs help outsourcing those sorts of things, and we're going to help them save money and lower costs and create efficiency.
Well, let's talk about that. How do you help businesses grow and compete in the marketplace?
Absolutely. So we do it in a number of ways. The main way that I like to push is our hiring platforms, right? How are you going to go out and find the best people? If I'm, say, a small business and maybe I'm an accounting firm and I need to hire the best new possible accountant in the area, where do I even start to look for that person? Could I call colleges? Maybe, but the bigger companies are fighting there already, and it's harder to get a place at the table. So what if ADP's platform helped put my information on hundreds of websites, right? And we're able to go out and find those people and bring them in. And then when you do bring them in, how do you convince them your company's the best? We're going to help you create interview questions that are going to attract those people and convince them that this is the company they want to work at. And then we're also going to give you the benefits at an affordable price to you to convince those person that not only do they want me to work here, they're going to ensure I work here by grounding me through health benefits, life insurance, 401k, whatever we can offer them,
Have you found that helps with people with retention of employees?
Absolutely. If at this day and age, more people, especially millennials coming in, say that having a retirement plan is almost more important than having larger compensation.
Right, and because millennials always seem to get a bad rap. I don't know about that. I know millennials who are pretty efficient and do a good job with their monies.
Yeah, I encourage millennials to ask that question. If you're not asking when you're going into, because as a millennial myself, one of my first questions is not just what is my salary, what is my compensation outside of my salary? That's what I really want to know. Right. And retirement's one of those big things, especially because you do a basic survey of any group of millennials, 99% of us are probably going to end up telling you we don't believe Social Security is going to be there when we retire. Right, so we have to have a retirement plan.
And I've seen the millennial crowds grow more and more in New Orleans, particularly since our economy here in this area is doing very well compared to a lot of parts of the state. So this is perfect timing for organizations and companies like yours.
Absolutely. If you're going to continue to fight for the new incoming workforce, right, because we're only 4 years away as the boomers start to really push out of the workforce, where's that new workforce going to come to replace them? No, the boomers, I've got no problem with them. My father's a boomer, and look, they've got to leave the workforce at some point, as well as, now, of course, not all of them. Some of them don't want to, but they're going to leave. They want to retire, right? And where are those business owners who aren't, they need to replace those people. Where are they going to find them? Right. They have to go in and attract those employees and then keep them, right? And how are they going to do that? They have to offer them the benefits that those people need.
Yeah, and we're almost out of time. So what are you asking from business owners? What are capsulize it for us?
Absolutely. So really what I'm just asking for business owners is give me time. Let me come sit down with you and explain to you why and how outsourcing with us can really be worth it to you. And I'll show you how we're going to bring value to the table. And again, don't ever think we're too expensive, because we're not.
And I must say you're involved in the community. I met you at a community mixer, as a matter of fact. So I do tend to see more people in that millennial group getting involved in the community. And I think that's very, very, very good, because in past years you didn't see as much. I like to see young people like you getting involved in community projects and working to make our city and this whole metro area a better place.
And I'm just as eager to do the same. I've been involved with the Boy Scouts. It's my biggest community give back since I was 14 years old, when I started volunteering for them as well as working. So,
all right. Eric, we appreciate the information you've imparted to our viewers. Come back and see us again.
Absolutely,
and
Ed.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I have with me one of the people that's been one of my friends and confidants and has worked in the community with me. He really needs no introduction. It's Pastor Cornelius Tilton, and he's with the Irish Channel Christian Fellowship. I like to say church, but he does so much in the community. We met some years ago with Habitat for Humanity. He was president of Habitat at that time, and just has had a remarkable career in terms of not only pastoring, but just going out and doing grassroots kinds of things to help our community. And of course, one of the things that you do a great deal is the prison ministry. You've been doing that for over 30-something years. Talk to us about prison ministry. We sometimes hear that and people wonder, what is prison ministry, particularly for pastors?
Well, Ed, if I were to talk about prison ministry, sometimes people think of that as folks going in and preaching to the inmates and telling them that they need Jesus and so forth.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like telling a thirsty man he needs water. But we have a tendency to think that that's the only thing that needs to be done, when in fact we have people who are being warehoused and in an era of mass incarceration, where literally 5% of the people in prisons have substance abuse histories, but they're not being treated for their substance abuse. We have 2.3 million people incarcerated in the U.S. every single day. Somebody is there. You have 11 million people who cycle through local jails every year, but no one has seen this as an epidemic.
Right.
We have become the largest incarcerator of people in the world. We've passed the Soviet Union, and Louisiana, by the way, tops the list of those. So when we talk about prison ministry, unfortunately, folks used to think, well, lock them up, throw away the key, why do you give them a Bible? But the fact is, prison ministry is more than just that. Ministry to prisoners has to be an understanding of both their time while they're in, but understanding that the vast majority of them will be returning home one day.
Right.
And what do you do when they return home?
Right.
Nobody likes to think about that. Some families have cut off ties with their loved ones while they were there, so folks are coming back in with no support system. They're coming back in bitter as well. And who is going to embrace them but the same people who were involved in helping them to get put into prison to begin with. Right. And so when we talk about prison ministry, and especially with the healing communities aspect, we're talking about returning citizens. How do we make that transition back to civilian life?
Right. And healing communities is a national program, and your wife Carolyn is the state director of that program. I got a chance to actually sit in on a committee meeting at the Irish Channel, and I was just totally moved by some of the people that were there. Some of the people had been in prison, were out, and actually have worked through and become business people and are being economically given back to the community. And that was really heartwarming, and I just, I see that as a possible route to do that.
Yeah, the trouble is, I was talking to a young man last evening. When folks talk about what goes on in prisons, people are always saying, well, tell them to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And the question comes in, what if they don't have any boots?
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think it's a stupid analogy, because if you ever try to pull yourself up with your own bootstrap, you'll end up on your bottom. Right. The idea here is that everybody needs somebody to help them along. Right. Some people are going to need a lot more social services provided for them, counseling, interventions of various types and the like, but moreover, an opportunity, if nothing else.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting that everyone is going to respond positively to this, but if we, and I've said this for almost 40 years of working in prisons and the like, that if we don't recognize that people who are if we don't recognize that people are going to be returning home, and if they don't return home to welcoming faces, those people may be visiting our homes and picking up things that they can sell and the like, or could be getting into worse violence and the like. We have an obligation as the church, because when you talk about what prison ministry is, there are folks that say, why do we have to deal with those people?
Right.
And
right.
I heard Dr. Trulier, who's the National Director for Healing Communities at a breakfast, National Baptist Convention had a mass incarceration summit a few months ago. And he mentioned the fact, if you're talking about those people, he said, let me tell you about those people. He said, those people are folks like Moses, who killed an Egyptian. Those folks are like Paul, who ended up in prison for preaching the gospel. Those people are like Jesus, who was executed. He said, you want to talk about those people? We're talking about those people. But when you get to talking about, if we think about these people as our family and what have you, when I got started in prison ministry back around 1980 or so, I didn't have anyone in my immediate family who was involved. I had a calling to do this, and of course there's a passion that goes along with that. However, today we do have a son who's incarcerated, and I appreciate the fact that I didn't just do it because I had a son who was incarcerated. I helped a whole lot of other people's sons in the process.
Cycles around.
Yeah.
And that's great. When we're also going to have on in the next segment Todd Higgins, who you know in the community, and he's with Black Men of Labor, and they're involved in a project for people who are coming out of prison, trying to get the workforce, because so many people won't hire people who have been in prison, and if you don't get jobs, the alternative is not good.
You gotta eat some kind of way. We were having a conversation just a few minutes ago, actually, about that, and I totally agree that if, in fact, if you're going to give people a way to be productive, then you can challenge them on it. But if you're not going to give them an opportunity to be productive, you can't talk about the fact that they're unproductive. And the idea of not hiring people simply because they have a record. Everyone was not a violent criminal. That's not the reason they went to prison to begin with. But we sometimes start thinking that they're all in the same bunch. But if we start thinking of them as our son, our cousin, our brother, our parent,
right?
We start realizing that they're from somebody's family.
Right. Reverend, we could go on, and you're very passionate about it, and I appreciate you. Give your lovely wife, Carolyn, a hug for me, and tell her I appreciate the work she's doing with Healing Ministries and Healing Communities, I'm sorry. But I want you to come back, and I would like to actually shadow you and maybe and follow you and talk to someone who's actually been incarcerated and is out. I think that would be something good that our viewers would like to see. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about this subject with Mr. Todd Higgins, who is with the Black Men of Labor, and they're actually trying to do something about the workforce and getting people who have been incarcerated, who are no longer in jail and have paid their dues, actually getting them jobs. We'll be right back, so stay with us. We've been talking about incarceration and what happens when people are incarcerated, and particularly when they get out, when they pay their dues. With me now is Mr. Todd Higgins, who's a wonderful friend of mine and a longtime community person as well, and involved heavily with the Black Men of Labor organization, which is a nonprofit that does a whole lot of good things in the community. But we definitely want to talk this time about a program that you all have been involved in, and that's with working with people who have been incarcerated and coming out, because they come back and they can't find work. Talk to us about why you all got involved.
We got involved basically because most of the community we come out is the Treme area, and most of the guys I grew up with, or guys part of the organization may have known, they had either a relative or a friend who may have been incarcerated. He came home, did his time, paid his what they said, his service to the state. The feds weren't able to get a job, and they would come to either Fred, I, members of the group, and say, hey, help me out with the job. And it was like most of the work that we're involved with in the private sector, we're either working with the government or some kind of federal agency where we weren't allowed to afford them the job based upon their prison record. And when you're working with the federal government in some sort of capacity, some of the work you do, everybody has to get clearance and a background check. So that was a problem for most of the gentlemen and women who wanted to come work for it. So we kind of came together in 2005, right after Katrina, because we saw a lot of displacement and a lot of people not being here, wanting to come back, be a part of rebuilding the city. Resource One Engineers, which is a partner with the Black Men of Labor, it's a local engineering firm, private firm. They had a lot of the work with the federal government, so they sat down with the Black Men of Labor's board and made a decision to have a program that would train men and women to strengthen their skill sets, to make sure that they had a work ethic, make sure that they had something to offer to either the city or the private sector as added value to that company, to be ready to work. And we just started working with the DOJ. A couple of judges that were introduced to us early on was Judge Laurie White.
And we're looking at some of the video or some of the pictures where you also got the city involved because we wanted to make sure that we show the people that are actually in those pictures. Or some of them have people who have served time, but there were also people who could not get jobs who are not, we want to make sure we be very clear, who have not been incarcerated. These are first-time job workers, if you will, because they couldn't get jobs.
Correct.
So we want to make sure that that's clear, so people don't say, "Well, you put me out there as somebody who may," and because we want to make sure that's clear.
Clear, and that's correct, Ed. We want to thank Mayor Landrieu and also the City Council for without them, that opportunity that we had in partnering with the city would not have happened. The mayor saw the merit along with his staff and along with the City Council to take on a task about abating a lot of the vacant lots that were left after Katrina. This was hard, tedious work out in the elements, but the program is separated in two different ways. You have the Building Minds of Leaders program, which is basically a reentry program, and you have young men who have never had a job, who was looking for work, who came out to the site or came out to our staging area every day wanting to work, and we allowed them the opportunity to put in the program because it's basically training them for permanent long-term work. It's a transitional opportunity to allow them to understand what work really is and how to come to work on time, how to take the initiative, how to follow instructions, and all that is being led in support of building their minds better so that they can pay, become a tax-paying citizen like everybody else.
To put those pictures up again, because you were able to put them together on the work site.
Correct.
With people who have been incarcerated. And that had to be a learning experience for them, which was a good learning experience.
Yeah, and when we set the program up, we looked at it as these guys who may have done something wrong in their past, they were also able to contribute to a young man who probably was going in the wrong direction. They could tell them of their story, which allowed that young man to see, if you continue doing what you're doing, this is where you're going to end up, and eventually you're going to be back in this situation. So
kind of an on-site testimonial to them.
It was more a peer-to-peer thing. It was more a mentoring thing because you had guys. I mean, the ages we had young guys who never had a job, but their uncle or grandfather may have been affiliated with the Black Men of Labor as a member and wanted the job. By a young guy named Terrence Smith, his grandfather Rudy Pichon is a member of the Black Men of Labor for the last 25 years, and he said, "My grandson need a job," and we said, "Well, let him come work," and he was able to work with men and men who have made some bad mistakes, some bad choices, but he was able to understand from them what not to do and what to do. And Terrence worked with us for a year before he wound up going into working for Hotel Indigo in St. Charles, where he wanted to be in the hospitality industry. Right. And all the guys loved him because he was really taking the initiative to learn, respected them, and he took those lessons that are their mistakes to make his life a difference. And we thank his grandfather for allowing him the opportunity to work with us.
Yeah, and will this program continue under the new administration, or have y'all approached them?
We have not yet set with Madam Mary-elect Cantrell, but we're working with that. And we do hope, she was one of the council people that voted on it, was highly supportive of it. So we do think it will go forward in this administration. And what we look at from a standpoint of incarceration is a high value commodity when you look at what these men and women are doing for the prison system. The United States is only 5% of the population, but we have 25% of our people in jail. We have the largest in the world, as the gentleman said earlier, and then Louisiana is ranked. Governor John Bell Edwards is looking at a program through his justice reform of ways of trying to decrease the prison population. So there's ways and things that are happening that we would like to be at the table to make sure that they can understand their ways of doing things. My background is in economics and finance, and I always look at the rate of return of my investment. If we're going to house these men and women and invest that kind of taxpayers' dollars to incarcerate them, then what are they giving us in return? You come home, you make an excuse about why you can't hire them, but there are certain programs like a reentry program that Lori White and Arthur Hunter studied, both judges, in Angola, to teach these men and women trade skills, to welding skills, HVAC, plumbing, electrical. Fantastic. So they have the same tools that a gentleman on the street may want to have for himself, and they have the certifications. So we kind of collaborated with them to make sure that when these men and women came home, they got a valued opportunity. The Black Men of Labor have 25 years of community service throughout the city of New Orleans. So we made sure we partnered with the public and private sector to educate them on opportunities of hiring these men and women. And so far, so good. We've placed people at the city of New Orleans in parks and parkways, sanitation, sewage and water board. We have some people working for Bossy Bollinger. So we have a cadre of people who have come to the table and say, hey, we want to help. How can we help? And we just open the door to make sure that if they're looking for men and women who are really wanting to work, we have those to fill that job.
All right. Hats off to you guys. Tell Fred Johnson, who's also involved in Black Men of Labor, I said hello, and so many of the other guys. Y'all are doing a fantastic job, and we'll keep tabs with you, bring you back, and give our audience a new report.
Thank you again for that
opportunity. We invite back, as always, our Executive Director and CEO of Crime Stoppers of the Greater New Orleans area. Darlene, welcome back.
Thank you, Ed.
And unfortunately, we got to talk about some things that we have so many tourists coming in. We've got Jazz Fest and everything else happening. But we have an onset of carjackings, and that is quite disturbing. Talk to us about what you know about that and what can be done to prevent it.
Definitely. So with carjackings, and this is a national trend, we're seeing these things increasing, and we're seeing younger and younger perpetrators responsible for these carjackings. So the first thing, it's not the old style bump and run type thing. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of times you're walking from your home, you're walking in a shopping area, and they are going to target you as you're walking to your car. So we want to make sure that people understand that the best thing to do is to comply. Give them your keys. I know it's hard to do. Give them your keys, put your hands up, back away, and let them know that you're not going to threaten them. It's such an emotional, high anxiety opportunity, so folks need to understand that the calmer you can remain, by the grace of God, remain calm. That person typically, 90% of the times, just wants your car.
Yeah, just get out of the situation.
Get out of the situation, walk away. So you're going to go immediately from victim to witness. So that's the second thing. We want to be good witnesses. Mm-hmm. What we saw recently in the city of New Orleans is a gentleman called 911 immediately, and he did something very important. He knew his license plate. Know your license plate. You're going to call in immediately to 911. They have license plate readers all over our parishes. State police has them. It will ping when they find this car, and it's immediate that they can go ahead and apprehend.
And that saves a lot of time.
Saved a lot of times. Know your license plate, and if you can't remember it, take a picture on your phone. Yeah, put it on your phone.
That's what I do.
Definitely put it on your phone.
I took a picture of each one of my cars so I can know if something happens. This is the plate.
Definitely. And the other thing we encourage people is to take a picture or keep a copy of your registration outside of the vehicle. Obviously, you need one in the car, but keep one also so that you have all of the information you need to be able to provide that detailed report. And last but not least, there are instances where they're going to try to maybe get you into the car. We don't want that. Do whatever you can to not get into the car, because once you get in the car, the threat escalates significantly. Yeah. If you're in the car, you're looking for a way to get out of that car. And it may be, if you're a driver and they're making you drive, it could be that you try to cause a slight accident, running into a post or something so that you can stop the car. If you're the passenger, you're looking for the way out. It may be jumping out of that car at a stoplight or a stop sign, but again, it's to get out of that car.
Right, because being in there is the worst thing that happens if they leave with you.
Yes, but remember, 90% of the time they just want that vehicle. So if you comply, they're gone.
Life could be saved.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it as always, and we hope that this will help a lot of people out there, because so many people don't want to part from that car. But hey, you can get another car, you can't get another life.
Very true.
Thanks for being with us. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show, and we're going to talk about someone who's doing some good deeds, and also say goodbye to two wonderful gentlemen. Stay with us. Well, they say that people come into your lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And that leads us into two gentlemen I think that have made a big difference in this world and who are now passed on. The first gentleman was Mr. Woody Auger. Mr. Woody Auger was one of those people who worked tirelessly in our community. And he died recently, but he was an active member on the board of directors of the Delgado Community College. He worked tirelessly, and he changed the lives of so many young people by giving of his time and his finances to make this world a better place, by helping people become who they want to be by graduating from Delgado. Woody, you will be missed. And we also want to talk about another young man who was making a difference, and that's Mr. Gregory Puckett. Mr. Gregory Puckett I've known since I was a child. He's given of his time and worked with young people all of his life. He was one of those people that got involved in projects, and he was one of those easygoing people who was quiet and just did his work and never uttered a single bad word about anyone. Mr. Puckett, you'll be missed, and I get kind of choked up because these were two great guys that died on the same day. And so I know they're up in heaven making it an even better place. Well, that's going to do it for Money Talks. Until next time, take care of yourself, do something good for someone else, and to remember, stay in peace, not pieces. We'll see you.